Startup Europe Comes to Silicon Valley has been at their third edition this year. And in fact, this is the third day of an activity that's been going on, in fact, for a few days. Today, as you've seen before, is the main conference where we're going to talk about a lot of relevant topics that we've set up for quite some time. The conference itself is just one chapter of a long list of activities. This morning we just ended a summit for investors, and this afternoon is going to be the place where the discussions that have been initiated in the last few days will take place. So a couple of words about this platform. Silicon Valley, Startup Europe Comes to Silicon Valley has become, to some extent unexpectedly, the de facto platform where policymakers, government representatives, executives, entrepreneurs are discussing the role of policy making in the future and the present of the digital economy. So the whole activities run over two tracks. One is specifically for this group of people. We're fortunate this year to host a large delegation of 100+ people coming from Europe. The second track is represented by some of the most interesting growth companies that are coming from Europe. Companies that we've been selecting over the years, companies that are actually representing today a significant amount of employment as well as a fraction of the GDP. Today, the companies that are represented on the other side of the rooms have an average of 4 or 5 million euros of recurrent revenues. They employ an average of 50 people, and they have 120% of a year-over-year growth. So they're definitely in the range of what we call the scale-ups. I'm going to go real quick on a pack agenda that we have. We want to really give you a sense of how things are changing in Europe, as well as the activities that happens between Europe and Silicon Valley. Just to give you a sense of some shared numbers that we have reported in some of the reports that you'll find online. By the way, if you look in the back of your badge, you'll see there is a QR code. All the information is downloadable from there, so we're going to save some paper. All right, so the scale-up economy in Europe today, in our definition, has a pretty significant number of companies already at that scale of development. We're counting more than 4,200 scale-ups. Scale-ups, in our definition, are companies that have raised at least $1 million over their lifetime. There is one scale-up in Europe today, almost every 100,000 people. You can count one of those. And while Europe has only 4 what we call superscalers, so companies that raise at least $1 billion, US has 25, and China counts 16. So there's some work to be done there, and so we'll discuss about this. And on the other side, while M&A is still highly concentrated in US, M&A between large corporates and startups, so exit opportunities, today US companies still acquire 3 times more companies than European companies. So there's still a huge gap. But more exit opportunities today are being developed throughout Europe. So in terms of really comparison between Europe and US, that's something that we're going to go a little deeper, but there's definitely an improvement on a number of exits that European startups are facing today. And actually, we presented last year a similar report. This year, there is a comparison. The good news here is that in the last year, the exit from European companies have improved compared to the ones from US from 42% to 52%. So 50% of the total amount, 52% of the total amount that happens in US. So still smaller, but improving. And moving from 30% to 51% of the total value of deals. So things are slowly improving. This is part of the half empty, half full glass. But in this case, it's actually half full. Talking about exit for startups, we're going to talk about the new scenarios of IPOs, what's shaking throughout Europe. But even more importantly, also, we're going to see the impact on the future of cryptocurrencies, right, that you all heard about. In particular, how is the initial ICOs, initial coin offering, is impacting the potential for exits of companies around the world, also in particular in Europe. We're also going to talk about how the regions, the Central Eastern Europe, and in general, how Europe as a whole is landing in Silicon Valley. One of the things that we're going to discuss, one of the reports that you find out on our table, is really reporting the number of corporations today from Europe that are setting an outpost of innovation right here. So we're counting 45 today. And the interesting news here that 50% of them were not there 4 years ago. So it's definitely a trend that we want to report and look at. We're going to talk about the roles of universities in support of the startup economy. Is that changing? We have some of the thought leaders in the field from some of the key local universities, as well as some of the top universities in Europe. We're also going to talk about the diversity issue of Silicon Valley. So again, we don't want to show just all the, the nice beautifying face of Silicon Valley. There's also issues here. So definitely diversity is one that is being discussed over and over in these last few months. So we're going to talk about this. So plenty to cover. It will be fast-paced. I don't think there is a single panel here that is going to last more than 15 minutes. So you keep pace with us. The idea is really to initiate a discussion and go straight to the point. Just to finalize, this is clearly a collaborative effort. I'm really glad to see so many friends of pretty much all the major organizations based out of Silicon Valley. They do have a bridge with Europe being represented here, so I salute them, as well as most of the consulate generals I have the pleasure to see around. So I appreciate your support and effort of something that feels more and more as a United States of Europe being represented here. Last but not least, there's also a long list of partners. I don't have time to read them all, but in your brochure you can have a look at yourself. Last word word out is for our general sponsors, and those actually I'm going to read because with them we do have food and time to really support these complicated efforts. So I'm going to thank specifically Google, K&L Gates, Ericsson, Microsoft, Dell, Facility Life, Domec, Creatives, Nearit, Checkout Technology, VLAMP, the Slovene Enterprise Fund, and IE Business School. Thanks again for your support. Now, let's get the ball rolling, and let's enjoy the European Innovation Day. Thank you.